3 minutes ago, observatories around the world recorded something they're still refusing to officially comment on. Comet 3I Atlas, until recently considered a safe interstellar hub, suddenly changed course, and its course now intersects with the orbit of Mars. This information was received simultaneously from 3 independent sources. The European Space Agency's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Posidona and radio monitoring stations in Australia all report the same thing. The object has suddenly accelerated, and not in the same way as a natural celestial body. The first messages arrived at NASA's center at 0417 GMT. Telemetry systems reported an error. Velocity parameters exceeded calculated values. 40 seconds later, data transmission from the Odyssey orbiter, which was observing Mars, was interrupted. The operator's screens showed a flash, similar to a sensor overload, and a sharp jump in the magnetic field near the planet's southern polar cap. According to eyewitnesses, the observation room was deathly silent. One of the engineers said that this couldn't happen. Nothing could simply change the orbit. But experts say that's exactly what happened. Data from the James Webb Telescope confirmed this. Comet 3I Atlas did indeed change course. And not just change course, it headed straight for Mars, as if someone or something had corrected its course. What does this mean? A system error, the influence of an unknown force or external control. Just think about it. An interstellar object, flying millions of kilometers, suddenly changed its mind and turned around. NASA blocked public access to the data almost immediately. The mission's website experienced technical glitches, and internal servers went into maintenance mode. However, as always, the network proved faster. Leaks have already become publicly available. Telemetry footage, screenshots, fragments of radio noise. And amidst this chaos, a single video frame. The Odyssey probe's camera captured a silhouette slipping into Mars's shadow a split second before the connection was lost. An object resembling a triangular structure, moving against the direction of the sun. Scientists are still silent. But what followed turned our entire understanding of reality upside down. After the first alarming reports, the night above the Earth seemed to freeze. Control centers in Posad, Darmstadt, and Tokyo worked non-stop. Communications lines between agencies never faltered. Short messages marked restricted appeared one after another on NASA's internal channels, then disappeared as suddenly as they had appeared. No one officially confirmed anything, but everyone within the agency already knew that 3I Atlas had indeed changed course. The first details came from the European Space Observatory in the Canary Islands. According to their spectral analyzers, the object had not simply accelerated. It exhibited variations in its pulsed motion, as if someone were nudging it at regular intervals. A report leaked to anonymous employees stated that pulsating velocity changes were recorded at intervals of 4,003 seconds. Such cyclicity is not observed in any known celestial body. This was just the beginning. A few hours later, at 0602 UTC, a weak but steady signal appeared on the Deep Space Network radio telescope at 1420 MHz, the frequency of the hydrogen line, the very one humanity believes to be the universal communication channel for extraterrestrial civilizations. At first, the noise seemed random, but when engineers ran it through a spectral analysis algorithm, a rhythm emerged, a repeating sequence of numbers. 3 PA, 3 PA. It's not interference, one of the technicians said. The signal repeats every 2 minutes. And whatever it is, it's synced with the rotation of Mars. NASA declared it a coincidence. But that same day, a 12-page internal document, classified confidential JPL Atlas Transmission A leaked online. In addition to describing the anomalies, it contained a table recording the coordinates of the signal source, and they precisely matched the proposed new motion vector of 3I Atlas. The last line of the report contained a strange note. The radiation source is shifting toward Mars' orbit, possibly a navigational correction of external origin. No one explained what this meant. But when an independent observatory in New Zealand confirmed that the object had indeed changed its orbital inclination by 0.6 degrees over 40 minutes, it became clear that this wasn't a gravity assist maneuver. It looked like a controlled turn. That evening, YouTube and Twitter X were flooded with dozens of short videos tagged Kabaka Atlas Signal. Users posted recordings of radio noise in which they could clearly hear something resembling a voice, distorted, intermittent, but human. Someone claimed to have heard the words, "We are here." Others said it was simply interference caused by the reflection of radio waves from Earth. But within a few hours, all of these videos were deleted and the accounts were blocked at the request of the copyright holder. Meanwhile, leaks began to appear behind the scenes in the scientific community. Princeton astrophysicist Harold Benson claimed in a confidential email that he had seen a draft of a NASA report that explicitly stated, 3I Atlas shows signs of artificial origin. The reflective signal structure does not match known cometary tail models. Benson later retracted his statement, blaming it on a misinterpreted draft. But a copy of the email has already circulated on forums. From that moment on, the world was divided into two halves: those who believed something momentous was happening, and those who tried to explain it all away as a coincidence. However, as time went on, coincidences became fewer and fewer. On the third day after the incident, the Minor Planet Center's astronomical database stopped updating. The last recorded position of 3I Atlas indicated the object was moving at 78 kilometers per second, 20% above the calculated limit for such bodies. A few hours after its publication, the page was deleted. Journalists trying to reach NASA received the same answer. There are no comments. But behind the scenes, there's talk of the so-called Campbell Report, an internal report that claimed the comet transmitted not just a signal, but a sequence of coordinates that matched the locations of 3 Martian satellites: Odyssey, Maven, and the Perseverance Relay Orbiter. According to this data, the signal seemed to be seeking contact. That's when scientists realized it wasn't an instrumental error. Something had actually happened. When information about the 3I Atlas maneuver leaked to the press, the reaction of the scientific community was immediate and contradictory. Some spoke of an unprecedented randomness of gravitational interactions, others of data falsification. But within 24 hours, even the most cautious admitted that something truly did not align with the laws of physics. Elon Musk was the first to publicly respond. On the night of October 7th, he posted a short message on X, his former Twitter account. The web detected a reflection that could not be natural, appearing like a directional signal. If this is true, we should brace ourselves. The tweet disappeared after 20 minutes, but screenshots have spread all over the internet. Later, at a SpaceX press conference, a journalist asked Musk if he thought the comet might be a spaceship. Musk smiled, but there was more than a hint of irony in his voice. If it is a spaceship, it's older than humanity and heading to a place where we're just beginning to look for life. After these words, silence reigned in the room. A day later, theoretical physicist Michio Kaku, put forward his own theory. In an interview with the Japanese television channel NHK, he said he had analyzed the leaks from the JPL report and discovered a strange detail. Every attempt to decode the 3E Atlas radio signal resulted in the same result. The signal duplicated its own spectrum. It was as if someone were holding up a mirror, the scientist explained. The communication system, responding to the decryption attempt, seemed to be aware it was being observed. This phrase instantly spread across all television channels. Meanwhile, at the California Institute of Technology, a team of astrophysicists led by Dr. Lindsay Harper announced that using new data from the Goldstone radio telescope, they had determined that the signal contained modulation matching Earth-based communication codes from the Voyager era. Just think about it. The sequences we ourselves sent into space 46 years ago are suddenly returning, but with a delay corresponding to the path not from Earth, but from the orbit of Mars. That's impossible, Harper said on CNN, unless someone is using our technology to speak our language. The scientist's words caused a storm in academic circles. A few hours after the broadcast, all links to the interview were removed from the channel's official websites. Only a short note remained in the newsfeed. The interview fragment was removed for technical reasons. Simultaneously, a recording of a video call between NASA employees and a private researcher, identified as Dr. Andrew Campbell, began circulating online. His name had previously appeared in the so-called Campbell Report, which first mentioned coordinates within the signal. In the recording, a man sitting in a dimly lit room says, "You don't understand, this isn't just an object." He replies, "We tried transmitting a test pulse, and after 42 seconds we got a mirrored response, as if someone was there, on the other side." A day after the video was published, Campbell's account disappeared, and his email address was no longer active. No official agency has confirmed that such a person ever worked at NASA. But the scandal is unstoppable. Observatories around the world began recording strange deviations in the magnetic fields around Mars. Images transmitted by the MAVEN probe revealed a faint, glowing halo in the suspected impact zone. Some researchers claimed the glow had a network-like structure, geometrically precise, echoing the lines of ancient Martian canals, which had been the subject of debate for 19th-century scientists. Then the military stepped in. U.S. Space Command announced it was taking control of Atlas 3I, and all future data would be processed behind closed doors. After this, access to most civilian telescopes near equatorial orbit was restricted. But the silence only added fuel to the fire. People began asking what they were hiding. Michio Kaku, speaking on the BBC, said that if they weren't showing the data, then what they were seeing couldn't be explained by established science. Just a few hours later, a new audio recording appeared online. It featured the hiss of radio interference, then a short hum, and then a distinct human voice pronouncing the words in English, "We are coming closer." The recording was allegedly made from a frequency of 1420 MHz, using the same deep space network antennas. Officially, it was a fake. Unofficially, no one could prove otherwise. But Musk wasn't the only one who knew the truth. One man tried to warn the world long before 3I Atlas changed course. And what he revealed in his final message sent shivers down the spines of even those who don't believe in mysticism or miracles. Just when everyone thought the anomalies had peaked, events took a new, inexplicable turn. On the night of October 9th, at precisely 3 UTC, the Deep Space Network's radios detected a repeat signal from Atlas 3I. It arrived with millisecond precision at the same time as scientists, despite restrictions, attempted to send a short response into space. 3 pulses, representing the simplest mathematical expression. 1 plus 1, 6, 2. Just a few hours after the words, "We see you," flashed across operator screens and the world changed, NASA halted all external broadcasts. The pages of the Odyssey, Maven, and Perseverance missions, and even the James Webb Telescope archives, began displaying access errors. Public communication channels with Mars went silent. No one explained why. At first, they talked about a solar storm and disruptions in the electromagnetic field. But instruments in orbit showed otherwise. No flares, no storms. The planet's atmosphere was calm. And yet, the signal disappeared, as if someone had muted the universe. Then the people disappeared. First, those who worked with the Atlas's original data. Then independent researchers, amateur astronomers, and journalists who wrote about the anomaly. Their accounts disappeared from social media. Their posts were erased from caches. It was as if someone was methodically eliminating everyone who had even mentioned the name 3I Atlas. International media tried to attract attention, but they too were quickly silenced. Short announcements appeared on screens. Technical problems with the satellite broadcast. The TV presenters read the news, but their voices were cold, as if they knew more than they were saying. On the 4th day after the last contact with Mars, the European Space Observatory unexpectedly received a data packet. Incomplete, fragmentary, but containing something inexplicable. One of the frames shows the surface of Mars, captured in infrared light. 3 glowing objects are visible, slowly fading into shadow. But most importantly, in the lower left corner of the frame, against the backdrop of a dusty plain, symbols reminiscent of the terrestrial alphabet are clearly visible. 3 letters, ATL. Beyond that, nothing. Scientists debated whether it was a trick of the light, a camera error, or digital noise. But one phrase remained among the control center staff, later attributed to Dr. Harper. If this is a mistake, then the universe itself is playing a joke on us. A day later, the signal returned. Quiet, barely audible, no numbers, no phrases. Just a low, steady hum, like breathing. It lasted 3 minutes, then it all stopped. Since then, telescopes have not recorded a single pulse from Mars's orbit. But everyone who was on duty at the time claims that, at the moment the signal faded, a sound resembling a human heartbeat was heard on the air for a split second. And then, absolute silence. Now, several days later, official sources claim that Atlas 3I was destroyed during its approach to Mars. No traces, no evidence. Just empty trajectories and erased observation logs. But independent radio amateurs insist the signal hasn't disappeared. He just changed the frequency. And now he can be picked up. Right on Earth? Some claim to hear strange interference on shortwave radio, like someone whispering words they can't understand. Others swear their radios turn on by themselves at night. And yesterday, a fragment allegedly recovered from erased NASA data became publicly available. The recording contains a barely audible human voice. It says, "Don't look up." The file was subsequently deleted. All missions to Mars are currently suspended. Observatories have been ordered to temporarily reconfigure their equipment and refrain from observations. Scientists aren't giving interviews. Government agencies are avoiding direct comment. Silence. A thick, ringing silence, in which only a thought remains. Maybe we're not ready to hear the answer, maybe it wasn't a call, but a warning. Because if they really see us, then they've seen everything else too. Our signals, our mistakes, our fear. And that means the time for one-sided silence is over. Last night at exactly 3 a.m., radio amateurs again detected a pulsating noise. Same frequency, 1420 MHz, same rhythm, only now it was coming from Earth orbit. NASA isn't commenting, the observatories are silent, but the radio logs contain one final line, recorded at the moment when the signal was at its strongest. Transmission restored, source unknown, signal continuous, and no one knows who it was intended for. The response came after 42 seconds, 3 pulses, a pause, and then a fourth, weaker than the others, but clearly visible in the spectrum. It's as if someone added another one. "He's responding," Dr. Harper whispered, watching the fluctuations on the spectrometer screen. "He understands." After that, the failures began. All JPL servers associated with the Atlas project went offline almost simultaneously. The message, "Data stream corrupted," lit up the internal monitors. Engineers tried to restore access, but files were disappearing right before their eyes, as if someone were deleting them in real time. A few hours later, reports emerged that NASA's archives had been partially purged. Images from the previous 3 days had disappeared from public catalogs. Instead of images, there are black squares labeled "Data Unavailable." The official explanation is that there were technical problems transmitting data from orbit. However, independent researchers managed to save some of the files, and they reveal something strange. A glowing outline resembling a giant spiral stretching for hundreds of kilometers near Gale Crater has appeared on the surface of Mars. Just think about it. A spiral. A shape that matches the configuration of the radio signal received on Earth. After the leak spread online, NASA issued its first statement in a week. It stated, "Atlas 3I remains under observation. No evidence of artificial origin has been detected." But 2 hours after the press release was published, the agency's website was temporarily unavailable, and scientists interviewed about the fourth pulse suddenly retracted their statements. One of them, Professor Levinson of Skaltech, disappeared. His colleagues reported that he had not contacted them since the radio transmission that night. Meanwhile, the object continued to approach Mars. And then something happened that finally divided the world into before and after. On October 11th, the James Webb Telescope recorded a series of flashes on the planet's surface. They occurred at regular intervals, every 43 seconds. The same temporal rhythm previously observed in the pulsating changes in the velocity of 3I Atlas. The images show 3 light sources arranged in a perfect triangle. One is at the location of Perseverance, the other at coordinates corresponding to the Odyssey landing zone. Then analysts from the European Space Agency put forward a chilling hypothesis. The signal is being used by Mars probes as relay stations. In other words, Mars is essentially responding. Following this, disruptions in communication systems on Earth began. Communication satellites over the Atlantic detected interference on the same frequencies as the Atlas signal. Several countries reported brief outages of navigation systems. The word everyone feared, information contagion, appeared in the news. That same day, a fragment of a report leaked from the Los Alamos National Laboratory, describing the signal's behavioral structure, as if it were learning to adapt to the format of terrestrial radio broadcasts. It also noted that some researchers had heard a voice in the spectrum that was no longer distorted, but distinctly human. The voice kept repeating the same word: contact. The U.S. government categorically denied the existence of such recordings. However, a screenshot of an internal email from a NASA employee surfaced online containing one short phrase: "Don't answer. Whatever it is, it's listening." From then on, everything began to rapidly unravel. Publications about the comet disappeared from search engines, and old news stories were redirected to blank pages. Even the satellite archives that independent researchers relied on suddenly became inaccessible due to a license renewal. It seemed as if someone was methodically erasing the very idea that the 3I Atlas even existed. But those who managed to save the data say the signal hasn't disappeared, it's changed. Now, instead of numerical sequences, it sounds like a heartbeat, steady and pulsating, as if Mars itself were breathing. And when a team of astrophysicists from the Arecibo Observatory decided to take a chance and send a final test pulse, it all ended. As the signals were transmitted, the antennas detected a brief blinding of their sensors, and a simple, almost childish message flashed on the monitor, rendered in dots and dashes. "We see you." At this point, the connection was lost. All attempts to re-establish contact were unsuccessful. And it was at that moment, when humanity realized it had been heard, that everything changed.